So talk about how you arrived at the design for using chaos in Dishonored.
Well, we wanted some way to authorize consequences and branching in the game, but in a way which would be a little more analog than just a single choice in a branching point of the story where you go yes or no. It's an aggregate of like little things you've done now and then, like killing people, being noticed, and that then influences events in the game.
We wanted to do something a little subtler, so periodically little messages fade in or out about whether you've increased or lowered chaos, and we don't expose the score to you or whatever, and it affects many things through the game, the outcome of characters, the end games, lots of other things like that, and yeah, I think it sprang from us not thinking about morality so much as much, but or as such, but rather thinking about, in this game you play a supernatural assassin in this retro-future industrial world, right? All these mechanics that you can layer on top of each other and that work in ways that surprise us all the time. And by that we don't just mean the powers that you have, but the mobility you have, and also the AI reactions and the AI awareness, the light and dark and the hearing and all that stuff. And so what we realized was that you could play through like a bull in a china shop, or you could play through very precise. You could literally finish a mission where nobody knew you were there. No AI ever saw you, an alarm didn't go off, and a very surgical, precise kind of way to play. So we realized what we wanted to model was more like the general stability of the world, and it's a dark world. Bad shit happens. You have to do bad things, but like how clumsy you are when you do them, and how many knock-on effects that has is in your hands. So we're really modeling like along that axis, right? Like very clumsy, very violent, very breaking a lot of things, or being very precise, being very quiet, being ghost-like.
For the players, and there are some of them out there who really, really want to play in a very elegant way, and they want to avoid killing people, just killing only the right targets, or even like having mercy for them, then they will have different endings for these guys.
How do you, from a design perspective, how do you keep this whole system from being a straight reward or punishment for the player for playing as a butcher versus playing as a ghost?
One of the things we wanted to make sure, this is a stealth game for sure, but like we wanted to make sure from day one that any approach is fun. Like if you want to walk up to the gate and call everybody out and just like whip ass, that's fun. If on the other hand you want to manage to get to the roof and somehow teleport across to the window or whatever, that there's a certain feeling of power to that breaking and entering fantasy as well. So we didn't want to punish anybody for one play style or the other.
Yeah, it's not a punishment, but it is a reflection of, as a player, if you really don't care about anything, if you just like run into things and like kill everybody, even the ones that don't need to, then do you really see it as a punishment? That the ending is a little darker in terms of some of the consequences, basically, because it shows that you didn't really care. So, but as a player, it will still be fun because it's a reflection of what you did, and that's what matters at the end of the day. It's not like am I punished or am I rewarded. It's like, is it a reflection of what I did? Because people like to have an impact on the world and the story, and we believe that it's what it's going to provide.
Yeah. I do think we have like an ideal player in mind, though, that, somebody who listens and is more thorough and is a little trickier, a little craftier, uses their powers in interesting combination, exploits the AI, but certainly there's no requirement that you're that kind of player for the game. I mean, we watch people play and they approach a given situation many different ways.
Tell me, why did you decide that using an aggregate system was a better choice for Dishonored as opposed to a branching or sort of one-to-one system like you see in a lot of other games?
It has everything we try to do in that game. I think we try to do things which are a little more gray than, you know, you don't want to see the strings too much. And it just feels like more natural, more analog to the player.
It's definitely an abstraction, you know, like how do these things relate? I, you know, killed some civilians along the way. I butchered a bunch of guards. The body count went way up, and as a result, somebody later in the game who could have been an ally betrays me. How did that how did cause an, you know, an effect play out there? And it is a bit of an abstraction, but it's us looking at places in the world that get like super destabilized because society decays. I mean, this is a city in the middle of the rat plague where like 50% of the population has been killed, and the government has gotten super repressive, panicking, trying to figure out what to do. Everyone's worst self is brought out, and then we're throwing the player into the middle of that.
Do the characters in the game react to you differently based on how much chaos you've caused?
Their
Yes.
story arcs definitely go in different directions. Like some of your allies have one outcome or the other.
And even the debrief moments, like when you come back to your home base,
yeah.
like they comment and like, you know, you'll feel that they are either respectful or less, or because some of them will actually like prefer, you know, will probably like encourage the violence, and some of them will encourage the like being the more elegant sneaker kind of player. And so yeah, there will be a reflection of that by talking to them.
So a lot of games are sort of tackling the question of morality and player choice and that sort of thing. What do you see as some of the positive and negative trends or ideas going on right now in gaming?
I always think it's great when they at least try. As a player, that's what I love. It's one of those things that I love in games.
Even dating back to the Ultima games, you know.
Yeah, that was one of the things that made the difference. But in what they sometimes do wrong is, I guess, like they're very binary about it. Like it's a Boolean. It's like, you know, there've been some great recent games where like if you forget to save one little sister, you have the bad ending. And as you know, it's one of my favorite games. But you know, I wish like there's been a little more variations, or, you know, possibilities at the end as a, you know, on or off, basically.
Yeah, and we didn't want to do the thing where like, oh, you murdered everybody in the village, so now you have the red lightning, but you saved everybody in the village, so now you have the blue lightning. You know, that doesn't make any sense to us either. So
sure,
but it's a hard thing to, yeah.
It is hard, yeah.
Yeah. So
and at least people are doing something cool. They're trying to reflect, you know, the player's approach to the game, and that we maybe as an industry haven't perfectly figured that out yet, needless to say, but it's an area worth mining for sure. You know, it's an area worth thinking about.
What do you think about gameplay rewards for making moral or amoral or, you know, chaotic or non-chaotic, I guess, pacifistic choices? I mean, is that something that you want to model as a gameplay system in terms of like, you did really well, so now you can have the stealth boots or something like that? Or is it something that should be more organic in terms of it's a story decision, so it's a story consequence?
Yeah. It's a really interesting question because at some point, you know, you would like to think we don't have to be base and like be economic. That you just like, well, the reward here is that this guy's happy. But at the end of the day, this is a game. It's a game more than it's a fiction, right? We need some fiction as a trapping or a context, right? But it's a game first and foremost. And so people are optimizing. They are thinking in terms of the cost of something, the path of least resistance in terms of resources. So it's tricky, right? Like
Yeah, I think indirectly you can reward players for doing good things in their morality. Because, for example, if they didn't trigger the alarm, they might have access to a safe that would have been locked otherwise, and therefore they could find some resource or something. And that's okay, but you're not really telling them, you've been good, therefore we give you something. But the morality thing, I think for me what matters is not so much like, do I get goodies or not, it's just like, is it a reflection of what I did?
Yeah, that's the more
of my
important
expression, you know, and that's the most important thing. So
acknowledge what I did and react to it.
Acknowledge what I did and like
Yeah.
tell me that you understood what I did as a player.
Right.
Because like if you reward the guy from doing good, then you kind of like bringing judgment to him. Or, you're kind of saying like, well, if you're good, I'm going to give you good things. If you're bad, I'm not. Or like the opposite, like, you know, oh, well, since you're playing in a bad way, I'm gonna give you good things too for the bad player. I mean, you see what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like, for me, it's really decoupled.